everybody, Ananias here, and this is part two of Vasteel. So hopefully we'll get to some fighting. Oh, I'm sure we will, to be honest with you. So they just bought a pair of blizzards, and you can kind of tell it gives you a pretty good idea of how good a mech is just looking at their health, which is the top number down there. Oh, by the way, this is part two, as I said, so I do have a part one. Hopefully that was obvious to you out there. So if this kind of game looks interesting to you, check out part one, and I explain what all of the numbers mean and all of the different icons and stuff like that. So it starts out, and he already made his turn, and so now it's my turn. Now, one advantage, as I said before, the Royal Army gets to go first, but I actually on my first turn get the advantage of credit for the cities that I own. These things. So this is not a large board at all. As you can see, I've gone all the way from one corner to the other that was up there. Um, so one thing that I always did, which I think is a good idea, um, is as you can see again, this board's not large, so this isn't really necessary, but it's a good idea to get into a habit, and that is going down, pressing run, and going down to this find feature, which allows you to see actually how many mechs you have. The coordinates of the mech are there on the left. That's the XY numbers. But it's real handy just glancing all the way to the right over there, and you can see the word go. In other words, they have not gone yet. They're good to go. And of course, you can select on the mech, and it points and it takes you right to it. So I have four. All four are here. There's none of them outlying somewhere in the mountains that where the mech might blend in, and you don't have one sticking way up here or something, and just don't really notice it. But anyway, okay, so it's also a good idea to kind of get a good lay of the land, to kind of see where your cities are. So you do have kind of a city way out here. Let's see. Nothing too far, but he did send a mech down. Is he sending one south here? It's just a grunt, so it's not a kicker mech, and he's also sending a grunt out this way, and I've got a city sitting here as well. But the majority of his force, which he also started with four, it looks like, as it turned out, he just sent down the middle, and these are better than the grunt. So he's kind of sent his own scouts out, kind of to the perimeter, and he's sending his the majority of his strength up the middle. Um, and you do not want to lose a factory. Factories are worth more at the beginning of your turn as far as how much money you pull in. Um, so let's see. We're gonna go ahead and take this scout. I'm gonna take him as far as this. So my goal here is to set this scout in this city, so to make it tougher for him to take it. Um, and let's see. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing with this scout. Now, one thing I like about the Rebel Army is they have a better range of mobility than the Imperial forces do in the cheap mechs. The ones that you're going to be buying the majority of the time, which is basically it's an even comparison here between Scout and Grunt. Those are the cheapest two mechs that you can get, and the Scout has a mobility. I'm wanting to say it's like 8 spaces, whereas the Grunt is like 6. I mean, it's a huge difference. Although the Grunt is technically stronger, as I mentioned in video 1, there's that delay as far as firing goes that makes them kind of aggravating to try to control. Okay, so I started with 2 scouts, similar to the computer, and I think that's my second cheapest mech. I'm pretty sure Blender is the second cheapest. Doesn't have the range, but obviously has more health. There, as you can see, with the 70 versus the 40 that the grunts had, or the scouts had. And then I've got a Sledder, which is a nice mid-level mech for starting out early. Now the Sledders, you can see the 3 letters there. The COL gives you the terrain they're best in. So these are cold weather mechs. Of course, I can undo that. That's all-terrain, and the scouts are also all-terrain. And all-terrain doesn't mean they work equally well in all-terrain, just that they're kind of rounded. So they're going to work well in this type of terrain, but they'll be okay at the extreme types of terrain, so like water and snow and stuff like that. They'll be okay. They're not going to be as bad as if, for example, you had a desert mech trying to go traipse through the Andes mountains. Um, okay, so we're going to kind of do what they did, um, as far as just kind of sending our forces north. Although I'm going to take a little more of a defensive stance. So my goal here really is I feel like to get into the cities, to kind of try to bolster those. So I'm gonna bring him here, and hopefully on the next turn be able to get him into the city. I don't know if he'll have quite the range. I should have taken him out further this way to get him into this city, but that's okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. So I have $7,700. One thing I did test is I was wondering if I could purchase a mech and actually start it out here where the factory is, and you cannot. And I feel like would have seen that, or the ability to do that, on this particular board where you've got a factory literally right, I mean, this close. But I couldn't remember if I tested that back in the day, but you can't do it. So as I mentioned before, the G number there is how much it costs. So this one's $240, and I've got 7,700 to play with. I always found that it was best to kind of flood this board with these scouts, and just try to make as many mechs as you possibly can, just to kind of, again, and the computer does the opposite strategy. It buys the most expensive it can and works down the list. Um, so, but again, and part of it comes from the fact that these are actually pretty easy to fight with. And I hate to say that there's a way to cheese the fighting, but and I'll show you what I mean by that. But you can kind of, I don't know. It's just a matter of manipulating the system. I guess one can look at it and say, well, I know my enemy's weaknesses or whatever. But you'll get a chance. You'll see it here in a minute. Actually, I meant to buy a more expensive mech as my last one. Oh well. Oops. Okay, so now I've moved everything, and then I've done my purchasing, which you don't have to do it in that order. I just always have. It's easier that way for me to remember what I've done and what I haven't. Okay, so I'm going to end my turn. Okay, now the computer. Okay, this will be your first look at what the battle segment looks like. So these mechs actually don't walk on the ground; they're hovering. And the city is going to be randomly firing at this mech. Or not randomly. I mean, it's aiming at him, but there's not a lot of thought that goes into kind of where he's going to be. Now, there's the life going down there in the top left and top right. The top left was his life, and the top right was mine. It's color coded. Now, since he blew up the center of the city, as well as died, I retained control of that city, even though he killed the heart of the city. One thing I can't remember, and we're not going to be able to see it here, I can't remember what the life of the city has now. I don't remember if it's 1 or if it goes back to full life. I don't remember that. Now, one other note here on the computer, whenever they take their turn, they always do battle first, and then always do movement, and then always purchase if they can. They do them in that order, unless of course they can't purchase or can't move because they don't have mechs out or don't have money or whatever. But that's the order of their turn, and they without fail do that. Okay, so aqua grunt. Okay, see, like the aqua grunt, that's actually more of a water. It says marine. It's more of a water type creature. Although they bought the grunts first there, didn't they? Okay, so I guess I misspoke, or misremembered there, because I said they bought the most expensive first, and here they didn't. It's just that they know what they can afford, so they, I guess, start out cheaper, and then I guess what I'm getting at, bottom line, is they're going to spend as much of their money as they can, and get as many of the nicer things as they can, and while still getting the grunts, but they're gonna expend all their capital. Okay, so. With that said, I don't think I can get to... Yes, I can. Okay, so here I can either attack him, but see, now the terrain down there, you can see in the bottom left, is this water rocky type area. I don't like fighting in that. and it goes back to that little cheesing way of fighting that I was talking about, because there's rocks that stick up randomly. So I would rather stick my scout in the city, because I know I can defend that city fine. In all truth, the grunt would have a hard time taking the city, but sometimes the little nucleus of the city, it's kind of random as to where it is, that the little red dot that he would have to take out, and so the guns are not always placed in exactly the same spots. I kind of lucked up on that last battle, um, where they were trying to take the city, because the guns were actually able to hit him while he was shooting at the nucleus. The computer won't move around really. They'll get as close to that red dot as they can and fire, and then just stay there pretty much. They'll move a little bit sometimes, but they'll stay there pretty much. And so I was able to, was not only did the nucleus shoot him, which it just shoots in a, I think, clockwise manner, but some of the smaller guns were able to hit him as well. So I kind of lucked up. So it would be possible for a grunt to take a city. In other words, he would get into a position to where he's firing at that red nucleus, and the nucleus would just hit him once or twice. But none of the other little turrets would be in range, or in a position to where they could hit him. Okay, so that being said, okay, good. I can jump into the city. That's what I'm going to do. That'll help. I'll be able to defend it easier. And then I'm going to take the blender. You know what? Honestly, I'm going to take the blender right here. I'm going to kind of back him up. I'm going to send at least 2 scouts this way. Send this guy straight up this way. This is kind of what I was talking about as far as just getting as many mechs out there as you can. And you probably noticed, he was also able to buy 6. And so what I'm going to do here, he meaning the computer there, and so why didn't I spend that money? And honestly, I did mean to buy actually a different mech or 2, just so you guys could end up seeing them. But I'll do that here. Okay, so I am still going to buy a couple scouts, because it's a really good idea to have just quite a few of these guys. But once we get up to the enemy base up there, you're going to want something other than scouts. I'm going to buy a Bile, which, remember, this is the first level, so he's the most expensive guy I can purchase on this particular board. And like I say, you will unlock other mechs. I don't like sand rats. Blenders are okay. Slayers are okay, and some of this just comes from practice. And I just remember Slayers shoot from what looks like their kneecaps down there. It kind of looks like they're hovering, sort of, and their legs are just kind of dangling, and that is actually kind of what's going on. They shoot really low, or from really low, and it makes it a little tougher to use them. And I don't want a marine type. I don't want tropical. Boxers are really good. You know what? I'm going to get a boxer. And they're ones that you end up using quite a bit later on in the game. Again, marine, tropical. Marauders have that delay. I don't like them nearly as much. A rebel is just a good all-terrain mech. So we'll go with that guy as well. And then, let's see. There's not really anything else. Yeah, we'll try, because it's a cannon, desert cannon. So, whoop, I don't have the money. Okay, so let's just go with another scout, especially since it's the far back. He's got such good mobility. We'll just do that. All right. Now I can go to find if I want to, just to make sure. Whoop, there we go. There's one I didn't move. Okay, and I think you can have. I didn't realize it would show the blank spots. Okay, so you can have as many as 32 mechs out. And there's definitely boards where that comes into play, where you want to have, you don't want, 99% of your mechs here being scouts, and then you have no strength, really, and you're having a hard time buying mechs, and so you almost have to purposely sacrifice some so you can get some good equipment out there. Okay, so it was this guy all the way to the left here. I did not move him. That's fine. Let's see. I can't get up to that grunt. I was thinking about attacking him. So I kind of want to get in a position to where I can maybe get to that city to defend it. If I get too close, then the grunt will try to attack. So I'm going to sit him right here. Until this scout can get some reinforcements, I'd rather him just sit in that city, since I don't have one out here. Okay, so let's end this. And we'll go through this next turn here before I end the video. And actually, in all honesty, I'll probably just go ahead and record the third video. Okay, well, we're fighting. Now this, I wasn't paying any attention, but I'm in the... Oh, he doesn't shoot from his knees. Crap. See, I'm kind of playing it a little bit. Okay, there we go. So, and by playing it a little bit, I meant I was baiting him and trying to keep him on that far side of the structure there, so that my pillar could be shooting at him. You can blow up the pillars, and it doesn't show their life in any way. And so, okay, good. There's no more fighting. So you can blow up the pillars, but now the AI just isn't that smart. So sometimes they'll accidentally blow up the pillars and trying to kill you, but otherwise they're just kind of trying to get to you. Whenever you get close enough to each other, keep in mind the button that you use as your primary firing button is the same one that you use for close quarter combat. And so your mech will start just punching. And it can be a little tough because and they did a pretty good job, but if you get close or too close, then your punches may not land because you're not quite close enough, but you're still swinging punches. And, and that happened to me actually right there, where I wanted him to fire his primary weapon, but instead he was punching, but I wasn't at a good position for him to punch. So I can't remember what mech I'm thinking of that shoots down toward their knees, but it obviously wasn't that one, which is actually a good thing, because that other one, it makes it tough with the other way. Okay, so as I said, and you're going to get in a habit. For those of you, anyone listening that doesn't know, the Turbografx controller really only has two primary buttons. It's basically like an original Nintendo controller. But it does have turbo sliders, and so you can raise or lower the sliders, and you can just press and hold down the button, and it's like you're pressing it constantly. But in factory, right from the factory, you didn't have to get some kind of third party to get those turbo sliders. So you get into a habit in this game of using those sliders constantly. So, and I just did it out of habit because I remember playing this game back in the day. On this screen, you want the turbo sliders all the way off, so you don't accidentally, grab the mech and you end up moving in one spot or something. But in battle, I find that it's easier to have the turbo sliders on. So, okay, I'll bring these guys up here. Okay, that's going to be kind of a tougher battle. I would rather fight this blizzard, and I think he bought a second one, yeah, in a city. And see, he recovered some health. I think he ended up with like 70 something, and now he's got 99. So he doesn't have full health. I think he starts at 100 or 110. But anyway, either way, it wasn't 99. So let's now see, these blenders don't like the forest type environment. He can't even get to here. If this blender could make it to the city, then I would probably bring him off one spot and move the blender into the city. But I can't. He just will not go through that forest area very well. Again, I'm just going to wait until I can kill that guy in the city. We'll send another scout north. Let's see. Do this again here. Okay, let's send this guy forward. Something along those lines there. Okay, now I'll move the mechs that I just purchased. Actually, these guys move really well. This was the most expensive. They really don't have that much of a weakness, except it does have a little bit of a delayed shot. Not too bad. If I remember, it's not as bad as some of the Imperial mechs, but it's bad enough to take note of it. Okay. And now I've got some good mechs out there. I think I'm just going to buy the rest of these. I'm going to buy scouts, and honestly, it's just because I want to, in effect, kind of overwhelm them. Now, one thing I guess I could show you that I mentioned in the first video. Oh yeah, that's right. The rebels don't really move real well on the ground. Oh well. Anyway, is the way the transports work. So I'm gonna buy a toaster. No, I'm not, because they're $4,800. Wow. Okay, and nearly as much money this time. Okay, well, never mind. So basically, what I was going to do is purchase a transport, um, and place it right outside my base, and then I was going to buy another mech, and you can literally just immediately place it right in the transport. Then on your next turn, you can move the transport however many spaces, 7 spaces, and then you can then move the mech that you purchased that was in the toaster. You can then move it. So it's almost like, it can move then whatever its movement capability is. So let's say I buy the toaster, I put a mech in it. Okay. Then on the next turn, whenever I begin my turn, I can then move the toaster 7 spaces, and then I can throw, if you will, or however you want to look at it. Like if it was this Marauder, I can then move him 5 additional spaces. And then I personally, this is just how I used them, and then I can bring that toaster at the end of that turn back to a starting position at the base. And so you can get some of your mechs out there into the field much quicker. And I've played boards before where most of my spaces around my factory have transports. Um, so anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'll just purchase a bunch more scouts. I won't need that many mechs to take the final or the last city up there, um, and that just comes from practice. Because I remember whenever whenever I first got this game, it was so infuriating. Um, because the last city doesn't act like a normal city. The factories look different too, than a standard city, and they're more difficult. And I couldn't really figure out how to do it easily. I'm hoping I remember, to be honest. But let's see. I'm going to go ahead and let him take. Well, 22 minutes. That's all kind of a long video. I'll go ahead and leave it here. And then, like I said, I'll start it right back up, and I'm going to go ahead and do the next recording. And anyways, I'll talk more about that. Talk more about that at the beginning of the next video. So, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and take care.